Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by, first and foremost, Paul Hall, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay.
You always do that when I step. You always do that when I step away. You always.
We are also joined by Sleeping Warrior, Righteous Force, Chocolate Saying, Arwin, and Anon Moto. Very good to have you all in G+.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Hello, hello, hello.
It's got a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey Nathan, you got your long conversation after all. How about that? After that silent start.
Yeah, I got coffee, got myself a pop. Excellent stuff. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Nope.
Sorry.
Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
No
Only
actual rotation. No.
Scientific evidence?
Axial rotation. We need an axis.
There's no axial rotation because indeed no axis, and there's no actual rotation either of anything physical. No, just those lights going around us in that pattern.
About scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope.
Oh, what?
What is it?
What's gravity?
Bending.
What is it? Is it a force? Is it not a force?
It's the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time. Sorry.
I actually agree with Einstein on this one. When Einstein describes it as an observed phenomena that we perceive, but isn't actually a thing, we just see a little bit of movement, and it kind of lines up with an explanation, but it isn't a force. And Einstein said so, and he is your science, so you will follow him. So get used to it. It's not a force.
So you can think of it as a force, but
No, not really.
But what if we just don't think of it as a force? It doesn't specifically exclude.
What phenomenon though? If I drop something, I just drop something. What's the phenomena that I'm seeing?
It's just your keys are more heavy than the air around it. Some things don't fall down, do they? Some things go up like helium balloons.
Right.
Cigarette
I think
smoke.
it falls under displacement.
And we can manipulate it as well. We can control which way the helium balloon goes. If we do it in air, it'll go up. But if we do it in something that's more dense than air, like sulfur hexafluoride, it'll go up faster. But if you do it in something that's less dense than air, like hydrogen, the helium balloon will go down. We can control it. So it's not being controlled by an external, magical, spooky force, is it?
Oh, I mean, by that, it seems like it has to do with the densities relative to each other.
Oh, do you know what? That's exactly what it is.
Density
And we know it's that because scientific method tells us that the thing that we manipulate is the presumed cause. So if we presume that the cause is the manipulation of the medium and then we manipulate it and it gives us the effect, then guess what? Science is on our side and it says that's what the cause is because we've manipulated it. But guess what also it says? You can't infer additional causes unless you can prove them by manipulating them too. So if you're going to infer that there's a little bit of gravity causing a buoyant effect, then guess what you've got to manipulate to prove that your hypothesis is true? Because if you can't manipulate something to prove your hypothesis is true, then either there is no independent variable there for you to manipulate, or you've got to accept your null, and that means there's no gravity.
You have something to add, Babs?
Yeah. Why does density favor the downward direction?
It doesn't. It's relative.
Relative density.
If you're helium, it doesn't.
If you're hydrogen, it doesn't.
Observe that
If you're
fall
a
downward.
ping
Hold on,
pong
chocolate.
ball at the bottom of a pool, it doesn't.
Just one sec. Go ahead, Babs.
Wait, before
We
we
do
go.
observe
Hold on,
that
Arwin.
No. This is
Oh.
a plain truth.
Yeah, but he's trying to get a
chat
word
is
in. It's his
asking
point.
what the Discord server is.
Hi, Rumpus.
He wants to join.
Go ahead, Babs.
We do observe that most things do fall in a downward direction. So why is the downward direction favored?
Because most things are more dense than the medium in which we observe these things falling in. Air. Most things are more dense than air. Not everything, but most things. And that helium balloon proves that that's the case.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Water. Got a puddle in front of me. It vanishes. Disappears up into the sky. About cigarette smoke. It's not falling down.
If you think back to when you were younger, where I grew up, it was quite rough and cars would get stolen every other weekend. They'd be burnt out nearby on a field somewhere, like with a farmer's track that's the only access to it. And I used to be able to watch the thick black plumes of smoke from the tyres as they were on fire, and they would rise up until a certain point, and then they'd level off, and then they would be laterally displacing in the medium that they're in, no longer going up or down, going horizontal. And that, when you think about it, is exactly what we observe with everything, but you just don't realize that the medium is relevant.
Fair enough.
Just like to point out,
Go ahead.
Archimedes, didn't Archimedes like figure out this whole density, relative density and buoyancy thing like 100 years before Jesus?
No,
He had no
Archimedes
problems. He didn't need the force. He wasn't like, man, I'm confused about this. There isn't a force. This whole force business came in like 1700 years later.
Isn't he using displacement?
Yeah, Archimedes worked out displacement. He said that the volume of displacement was equal to the volume of the thing that was being displaced. So it was like you put something in water and then that volume would be displaced and it was equal to the size of the thing that was in it. But I mean, to be honest, the minute you start talking about that, it takes away from the point that we can demonstrate within scientific method, which is that the medium manipulation can control which way your which direction and magnitude your object will then move. No force required.
Yeah, because I've been wondering what kind of force that you added to that salt, that you added to that water, that made the egg go in the opposite direction of theory that these people are trying to convince us of.
Well, guys, I don't know. I really think that there are forces at play in the materials, but it's very simple. The ballers just falsely attribute that to gravity. I just see it within the relative density, and it expresses itself in many ways, and maybe even more ways than I have been able to figure out precisely. But
Yeah, and that's, do you know what's got a name? That
there are forces going on. There is displacement, there is this pressure, and it all ties in to how
there's a name.
material.
There's a name for the thing that you're describing. It's called the pressure gradient force. It works in fluids and in gases, and it explains everything. It explains why the egg moved when I put a little bit of salt in it. It explains why the anvil sits on top of the liquid mercury. It explains why helium balloon will go up in the atmosphere. And it'll also explain why helium balloon would go down when it's in hydrogen. It's because of the pressure gradient force, and it's caused by disequilibrium between the different things, whatever the relative things are, changes in pressure.
I totally agree, but I just wanted to, because it's tough every time that we discuss the Baller's claim about gravity and then force, not force. It can be a bit confusing when we say, now there is no force, because, well, there are kind of forces going on. It's just not attributable to this fictional gravity. That's the difference.
But you do, Arwin, and you do it beautifully. I would say your description is far more eloquent than this force that they've just attributed by word only. When you say relative density disequilibrium, you're essentially starting from the point of disequilibrium in your explanation for gravity, which is where they start. So they start with the mic in the man's hand before he drops it. In other words, the mic is already in disequilibrium. So when you're describing the explanation of gravity, which is an assumption that something's going to start moving down at a given rate, i.e. it's already in disequilibrium, it's not static, it's not at its point of rest, well, that's more accurately described as a comparison to gravity as relative density disequilibrium.
Yes, exactly.
And you know what's really beautiful about that phrase? That phrase was kind of like created because of me and Arwin arguing. I don't know if you guys remember, but me and Arwin argued over gravity at one point because whatever we were arguing at the time, I can't even remember what we were arguing. Overall, we were actually arguing about the same thing, but we just didn't know what we were talking about because this name didn't really exist.
Well,
and now we realize it's like, hallelujah, we're on the same page.
Well, I can give a little bit more fill-in for it. Back then, we didn't really have an alternative conceptualization yet, not an elaborate one to replace gravity and explain all the displacements on that. We were just so hell-bent on getting rid of gravity that our replacement for it was just almost not there. And I was really frustrated with that. I just thought, no, why discard this? There's all these things here. And then it started to gradually sink in, like, wait, it really isn't founded on anything. It's just gathered together different types of elements and effects that can be proven through other things. And that's when also John really started to get more involved. And then the relative density theory in its basic form was reintroduced. It came to our consciousness as an alternate explanation. And that's when that's when I thought, okay, finally, there's a proper fill-in to replace it, and you can actually manipulate the independent variable.
This is not a scientific theory. Yes, there are elements that have been proven through science, but this is not a scientific theory. If anything, it's more accurately described as a secondary effect of entropy.
Hold on. Since when is that?
Since I listened in on a conversation between two PhDs.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. Any viable hypotheses from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysicists? Anybody? Anybody at all?
No. A single
let me know,
viable.
Let me know when one of them.
Oh God.
Is there a single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics in their entire histories?
Now,
Oh,
single viable scientific hypothesis. So single hypothesis, not hypotheses from any one of the disciplines.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Let me know when any of them can do anything more than observe.
No, they can't. They're all pseudoscientists.
At this point, let's give a shout out to that Dr. Becky that 10th Man's been pressuring. I've also jumped on the bandwagon, and we should all jump on the bandwagon. Just ask her to demonstrate any scientific test or experiment that she's participated in her field where she complied with scientific method, because none of those can.
Let's do this now. You got a link. Chuck it in Master B. I'm going to encourage the audience to go and do this right away.
Just type in Dr. Becky on YouTube, you'll find her.
I'm running a show. Please share the link with me.
Okay, please. Give me a second. I'll find it for you. Just for you.
Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without a container?
81,000 subs, and she's making regular videos at the minute. Do you want the link? Where do you want it? Master B?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Your wish has been granted, sire.
So this is the video. This is Dr. Becky. I'm just going to pop it up for the audience for a second. On pause. And the video itself is which one?
The last 3 or 4. She's been making them regularly in the last week or 2.
So why can't anything go faster than the speed of light? No. Why do we measure? No. Where's the AMA?
I think it's the day in the life of an astrophysicist. That's the one that 10th Man started his thing on.
Okay, perfect. So if I share the AMA in the live stream chat, so if you're in the live stream chat now, make sure you come back. But if you would, go and ask this. She's an astrophysicist, right?
Yeah.
Ask the astrophysicist for any scientific evidence that she has.
I asked her if she could demonstrate any experiment where she was compliant with scientific method.
Perfect.
I got crickets.
It didn't look like she was doing any experimentation. She was just reading emails and drinking coffee and looking at some.
No,
graphs.
she was coming up with hypotheses while she was sitting there listening to her iTunes and talking about black holes and stuff. She was sciencing the shit out of them, apparently, at her
Don't forget
computer.
when they had to go eat lunch with the guy. Praise him for getting his PhD.
Hey, I think she just got a PhD recently, and she's a little bit giddy because it seems to be in all her pictures.
Because she's got it sitting there on her desk. Very prevalent on her desk. Like, please look at my PhD that I've got here, guys.
So this is the third, I believe, unless someone can correct me. So we've had George Musa, then Daniel or Danny Faulkner, and now this, what's her name? Dr. Becky, who have stepped into this arena with their PhDs, and now we're in a position to challenge them in regards to their just so stories under the banner of science, which it is not.
They don't talk to communists.
Has she stepped into this arena, though?
I know.
Or did we step into her arena? Because I don't think, has she addressed Flat Earth at all? I don't think she has she?
Hold on. Travis, hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Travis?
Yeah.
I'll pop him on mute.
Take that. You want me? Okay. You want me to do 41?
Why can't I server mute? There we go.
Right. Take that.
My God.
Still hear him.
It's because someone else is trying to server mute him at the same time as me.
No, it's there's a delay. It's on my end too. You got to press it and wait. So you were pressing it more than once. That's why.
Yeah, I was. Impatient. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What's the sun?
No idea. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
You don't even know if it's tangible.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
No.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Did we have gas pressure without a container already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we've done it.
no
That's
evidence
it.
of that.
That's it. We've covered them. That's it. Housekeeping done. Thank you very much.
I would like to reiterate my shout out to the first few gas molecules that started off this atmosphere. That said, we're not gonna act like gas and expand into the available volume. We're gonna stay here. We're gonna rock. We're gonna start up this gradient and all that. Yeah. So shout out to those first pioneer gas molecules.
Yeah. They just said, let's all stick together.
Lewis and Clark.
Riley, I was thinking about that earlier when you asked we were talking about a few weeks ago. Like, how did the atmosphere freaking start?
Yeah, where did the atmosphere come from? Where did the oceans?
Exactly. I was having a long, nice conversation earlier this morning with all of the Globe people over in the overnight chat. They couldn't answer any of these questions.
Of course they can't. Everything revolves around gravity, space, and pixie dust. Right, Nathan, put my screen on if you would. I think we've finished housekeeping, haven't we? Right?
Yeah, you're up.
All right, so Ken Wheeler has put out a video recently, and I'll just scrub through it to show you the gist of it because I'm conscious of playing it. And basically, he's got a thermal imaging camera, and basically the blues are cold, the oranges and reds and yellows are warm, and they're all relative to each other. So if you were to bring something in the picture now that was relatively hot, everything else would change around it. It's excellent. And what he's demonstrating is this is a scene on it outside his house. He's just parked his car up at the beginning. He shows his car on the drive, hopefully, and then he shows a car drive by. So there's his car. He's got the warmth from the exhaust and the wheels and whatnot. A car drives by in the background. But what he's demonstrating here at this point here is that he's got a tree, and the tree is not as cold because it's on the reverse side of the moonlight. And what he's showing that the shadow, which you can't see as black on this, you see as yellow and red and oranges. This is the shadow being cast by the fat part of the tree, the branches of the tree above. But because the moon's right above him, it's not showing it as good as what you'd expect it to be, because it's not like a trunk, it's like a bush kind of thing. But what he's demonstrating is that the shadow being cast by the bushy part of the tree is like 2 degrees warmer than the grass that it's around. Now, ballers say, oh, it's just radiated heat, you moron. Now, what Ken doesn't do is he doesn't cast his own shadow and then watch the temperature get warmer and then cast it and then remove the cast shadow to see what happens. So the ballers are able to argue and get away with this radiated heat nonsense. But the point is that this is demonstrating, this reddy orangey color here is demonstrating that this relative area is warmer than the area exposed to direct moonlight, and it's caused by the casting of the shade of the tree. So basically, the argument is that if moonlight is colder, then this is supporting the assertion. But because Ken didn't cause the shadow himself, the ballers are able to get away with radiated heat. If there's anybody out there that's got one of these FLIR cameras, we need to
buy one though.
They're dead expensive. They're dead expensive.
$400. You can get the ones that are attachments to your iPhone or Android, and I think it's better because you can you can do like a recording of your phone screen, with different apps. So it's better to get a
yeah, that's true. But I think what Anthony's saying is, I can't remember. I didn't look it up, but I know Ken Wheeler well enough to know that this will be a sophisticated piece of equipment. It will not be cheap.
Yeah, so basically,
$400.
This casting of a shadow is warmer than the relative area around it. Now, Sean Hufford has got one of these plug-in things to his phone, and it'll do this kind of thing, right? Now, Sean's currently on a task to demonstrate whether or not moonlight is colder. Now, to be honest, Ken Wheeler's already demonstrated that moonlight is colder than the shade, but they're all going to argue that it's radiated heat. Now, Sean could do this exact test himself, and he has agreed to do a very similar test to this, but instead of relying on a tree casting a shadow for you, he's agreed that he will cause the shadow himself, watch what happens, and then remove the shadow, and then watch what happens. Now, I can guarantee he'll do something other than what he's agreed to do, right? Because it's Sean. But if anybody's got one of these cameras, these little plug-in things, all you need to do is cast a shadow and then measure and watch what happens with the temperature as it changes around where the area that's got the shadow on it now is, and then remove the shadow. And if the temperature drops, if the temperature rises because of the shadow, well, if the temperature rises because of the shadow and then drops when you remove the shadow, then it's not being radiated heat. It's not radiated heat the way they're telling us, because radiated heat, unless there's something putting the heat back in there, it ain't going to make it do that. It'd be a one-way street. But yes, anyone that's got one of these cameras, give me a shout and let me know. Let's see if we can replicate this.
I know somebody.
Hold on, just 1 second, Darwin. I'm stupid. I don't understand. What? So what? Okay, so moonlight's cold. Wowee. What does this prove? Who cares?
Not reflected sunlight.
Finally.
Yeah. So shout out to Ken Wheeler. Oh, actually, in this video,
hold on. The conclusion gets about 5 seconds of airtime. Right. So why would you say that then? Well, it's just reflecting it and getting cold. There you go. I'll put up a slight challenge. Still reflecting off.
Shout out retracted.
Shout out refracted.
No, retracted.
Don't eat.
What was Ken Wheeler's conclusion?
I knew he was eating. That's why we haven't heard him yet.
Hold on, Chocolate. I'm trying desperately to get onto this, and someone's just. Thank you, QE. Can you repeat that? Hopefully, without a mouthful of sandwich.
Sorry, man. I'm eating breakfast.
That's okay. You're still interrupted at the right time, which is I'd rather that with a mouthful of sandwich than not. So, what did you say about conclusion being drawn by the videographer?
Yeah, what was his conclusion? Did he have a conclusion?
He said that it was pretty obvious that the moon was reflecting sunlight.
Yeah, that's what he said.
He said it was reflecting sunlight?
And now we've got two people doing it at once. Oh, Anthony, come on. I know this is your point, but I tried to lead you on it, and now you're over-talking QE making the point. Let's try that again. So the videographer...
I'll tell you what, Nathan, hold on. Go ahead and say my name that you're addressing me, so these idiot crayon munchers on the panel will shut their pie holes.
So, what was his conclusion? Let's start there, Quantum Eraser.
That was my question. I said, what was Ken Wheeler's conclusion? That's my question.
His conclusion was that the moon is reflecting sunlight, as we all perfectly well know.
How
to be fair,
in the
I think-
world how can he reach that conclusion? What is I know what his conclusion is. I think I got it. He's saying the moonlight is cooler, therefore the double slit experiment is false. I knew it. I knew he was gonna do that. Ken Wheeler, you freaking clown.
His conclusion was that the moonlight is cooler, and when he referenced that it's the sun's reflected light, he was kind of being facetious. I think he was, because he was laughing, going right, ha ha ha, right, and then you could tell at the end he was basically saying he is kind of dumbfounded by it. There was no hypothesis; it was just an observation that look, it looks like it's cooler.
You know what?
That is what he did.
If he could do this experiment, sorry, not experiment, if he could do this test with that equipment again, but do it in a closed off room with glass or anything that will let
you're missing the point.
moonlight, and do the same thing again to actually prove that the moonlight
I
would
don't need
insert
that.
cold instead of letting entropy go faster, making things cool off faster, and therefore creating the apparent coldness. I would much appreciate it.
Right, who cares?
I
The
think
test
another-
is it. The test.
Is
The test.
Ken Wheeler a
Oh my
baller?
god. The test
Yeah, he's
is.
a baller.
The test's irrelevant. We don't need this test to make the conclusion, which has got very, very little airtime thus far. So
exactly.
Who cares a shit about multiple replications of this observation? It is meaningless. What we know from multiple different directions, not just temperature, is that we cannot have a reflection of the sun's light off the moon. That is an impossibility. The reason in this instance is because you can't have it radiating coldness from a hot sun. That's a contradiction in terms. Now, while I appreciate Anon defending his guru in this regard, saying he's sarcastically saying, well, it's reflecting the sun, right? Well, no, that's him appealing to his audience to confirm his cognitive dissonance. Sarcastic or otherwise, that's what he said.
He is definitely a baller. At least he's in the closet if he is anything.
We know he's a baller. That's why we're holding him to task on that point.
That's why I had to ask, is he a baller? Because if his conclusion...
He actually made a video making fun of flat earthers. So he is definitely a baller.
Well, he doesn't. Well, he's a wizard. And he likes to screw around. Just look at his freaking tattoos and all that shit.
Let's not ad hom the guy. God, Darwin, we don't need to ad hom the guy.
I'm not ad homing.
Look at his tattoos. Why? What are we going to find on his tattoos? We're going to find evidence of gravity on his tattoos? Who cares?
Maybe he has a G on there. I don't know.
Oh God, why? Second time we've done this, Arwin. Right, I want to focus on the fact we cannot have light reflected off the moon from the sun. Now, specular reflections are another way of debunking this. It's not just temperature that we need to make this conclusion.
Yeah, how can you have light reflecting off something that isn't even an object in the first place? So
I don't know about that.
It's completely
but
clearly, well, we don't know if it's an.
But clearly, you can't have uniform reflection of light off convex objects. I've been saying this for 3.5 years. Hey, Ken Wheeler, thanks, man. It's about time you caught up, clown.
Yeah.
But
I have a feeling, he's at the border of the
to the moon.
They're all talking over each other.
Yeah.
Go on and on.
Anybody give me?
So I have a question.
Take a minute.
Chocolate, hold on. Chocolate. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I say go on and on. Small pause. Arwin and Chocolate both talk. Anon,
so
go ahead.
You know those screens on old monitors or old TVs where you can create these this like magnifying effect and burn things. I forget what they're called. They basically magnify the sun. You can melt steel with it like really quick. If you can magnify the moonlight, I wonder if you can get more pooling effect, and you can see like a big hot spot on the ground, and that way you
He
can
still doesn't
manipulate.
get it.
That way you can actually manipulate your cause.
Yeah. You're doing what
Try a
Arwen's
sun
done.
cooker.
You're doing what Arwen's done. No, we don't need to replicate this observation again. We need to point out that in the heliocentric bullshit world of sphere Earth and us travelling around a sun that, according to them, is giving off light that's then being reflected off the moon, this and other things, including specular reflections, debunk the notion that the moon is reflecting sunlight, an absolute necessity in the heliocentric model. The moon's just a rock, the remnants of Theia that's coalesced because of gravity, and then is apparently a dead piece of rock reflecting light from the sun. Well, no, it is not. It can't possibly be.
Absolutely. But I
I
still
could-
like to know what it is
Oh.
because I'm curious at things, you know? Want to
Yeah,
know what
chocolate.
it really is. Is it cold? How can light carry cold? I don't understand how that could work in the first place. But maybe it's just another effect that is being subjected that the
That
moonlight
sounds
does.
like chocolate to me.
Yeah, chocolate.
What happened?
I just said go ahead.
I kind of gave up because Arwen just is not stopping today. So
Yeah. Nathan said, "Go ahead, chocolate," and then Arwen talks. Arwen, do you know what's your name?
Yeah, I'll leave because I've
No,
already
don't-
been verbally attacked several times on any kind of corner.
What's your
Not yet-
name?
Oh,
but
come
Arwen, you
on.
understand? You
later,
don't
have
have
fun,
to
have
speak
fun.
on
You
every
just
single
do your
point.
thing.
Look at you,
Shut
still
up.
doing it.
Everyone be
Yeah,
quiet.
Still doing it.
Arwen is ace. Oh, he's gone away. You've scared Arwen away. So anyway,
Anyway,
I know Ken Wheeler will be aware of. Now I don't know this term other than hearing it from Quantum Eraser. 60 level optics.
Exactly. This was over many years ago. So I don't know what is the great attraction to finding out. I don't get it.
I just want this to appeal to someone like Ken Wheeler in this regard. He's a heavy influence over a lot of people in this community. Now, they're aware he's a baller.
Yeah. That's the biggest problem in this community and has been the biggest problem since the beginning. Friggin'
one of the-
flat earthers following a tattooed Jabba the Hutt Uncle Fester baller. I mean, what on earth, people?
Can I just make my point? The point I wanted to make was in this video, he says, so there you go. I think operative sunlight. I'm not sure that was the word he said, but he said, of course, moonlight is reflected sunlight, in case you didn't know. So obviously, right. You see, listen to how he says that in the video. What, like 1.5 minutes in, the guy's smiling. I don't know whether he's being intentionally dishonest or whether he's just trolling, but he's smiling when he says this, and it's like he knows something's not right, and I don't know whether he knows all of it or whether he's just intentionally trolling us. But you make your own mind up. Go and listen to how he says it. It's very stark that he's misleading people by smiling.
wait.
Get him on the show.
Hold on. He's a baller, right? He does this observation where he's noticing moonlight colder than the shade, and yet his conclusion is the sun is actually reflecting off the moon. Yeah, wink, wink. That's what he said.
He didn't say
Now,
wink, wink.
Anthony's saying that he was being sarcastic.
Or dishonest. You'll have to interpret it yourself based on how you interpret how you saw what he said. But basically, the way he worded it, he was smiling, and it's like you just need to hear it to understand what I'm saying. The guy knows that this is not consistent with his model.
Interesting. I've never followed him. I've seen, I think, one video of his, and I didn't know till today he's a baller. So,
Man knows a lot about cameras.
That's okay. That's
He's
okay.
definitely a
Just get him
baller,
on the
but, you
show.
know, you take you
Just get him on the
information you want
show.
from everybody.
Just get him on the show. You
No,
have plenty of
that's fine.
people in this
That's fine.
flat earth community. Oh my God.
sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, I'm fucking done.
He rubs you the wrong way. I can understand why.
Anyway, so my point is,
Who rubs me? Wait a second.
oh god,
Who rubs
oh,
me
no.
the wrong way?
So Ken Wheeler will
Is it
understand.
time to go get your video games?
Oh god, here we go. It's the
I don't play video games.
calm is over. He will understand what specular reflections are. Now, if you're saying he already knows, and that's why his cheeks are turning up when he's saying, yeah, sure, it's reflecting the sun, isn't it, isn't it? Well, yeah, that's your interpretation. But those aren't the words he's saying. Now, the fact that that's a circle that needs squaring, and perhaps that's your interpretation of him smiling while he's saying it, yeah, clearly this isn't the case. But that's not what he's saying, is it? He's saying, he's reaffirming, in his conclusion, the complete opposite of what he's observing. Well, why would you do that?
That's why I left it open to the audience to discern whether they think he's being dishonest or not. He's clearly up to mischief because you can tell in his voice that he's not being sincere.
You know, some people don't want to come out the flat earth closet, and I can understand that, especially if you have deals with camera companies and stuff like that. I'm not making excuses for him because he definitely did talk shit about flat earthers before. But I have a feeling that after whenever he took this video, he's gonna, you know, he's not gonna sleep well because he's gonna try to figure this shit out, and maybe he'll look into it with a little bit more openness.
He knows. Go and listen to how he words it at 1 minute 30.
I agree. I feel like he's being facetious. He's being very, very tongue in cheek, going like he's very uncomfortable, and he's like, right, guys, right? Like he's about to leave the cult, and he's like, you know, kind of like what Owen Benjamin did at the beginning. He's like, I don't want to be a flat earth person, kind of that kind of thing. But you know, it takes courage to come out, especially, you know, with me and, you know, some of the people here. We're just a name. But if you're like have your face, you have company, people know where you live, and you have a lot of followers, you don't want to just come out. I can totally understand that, but I feel like he's getting closer.
Especially if you're a civil engineer called Brian Mullen, I can understand why you would not want to be involved with this arena.
Anybody in the academic.
I would rather to have him just stay a baller. Thanks.
Okay.
You could get him on the show. He's got plenty. So get some of these flat earthers to go.
There you go
on the show. Get him on the show, and then he can all show us. He can all demonstrate.
Right?
You not hear that?
Let's see.
What's
Guys, shut up when people are talking.
I can't believe it.
Hold on.
I really can't.
Anthony, what's the timestamp when he says that?
Just go from 120 and just let it play.
23 degrees. I'll make sure I'm in the shadow. Yeah, there we go. 19 degrees. 18, 17. Also in the moonlight. So, there you go. Opposite of sunlight. Of course, moonlight is reflected sunlight, in case you didn't know. Obviously so, right? Right? Let's see. Obviously so, right? Right?
What the fuck's he doing?
Right.
For his audience.
Right? I mean, I feel like he's getting closer. You know?
Why'd you care?
Because he has a lot of followers. More flat earth people.
Especially you.
Well, I'm already a flat earth person, so. And I've tried to contact him, and because I've had other questions with him, because I disagree with a bunch of other things, just like you, Q. You see, I don't just take a person and eat everything they say. I take a lot of things from you. I've learned a lot from you, but at the same time, I disagree with you on a lot of things. Same with Ken. I agree with a lot of things he says, but I disagree with a lot of things he says. And I try to contact him.
It's not a case of an agree or disagree. It's not a case of an agree or disagree. We're not talking about our favorite ice creams here. That's your problem.
It is about what you make decisions on. Like, as a human being, you get information and you get to make decisions. I'm just talking about from my perspective. There are things that I agree with him, and there are things that I don't agree with him. And I've tried to contact him about some of the stuff that he says that I have problems with, and he just doesn't reply to me because there's thousands of comments. So trying to get him on the show is like I can't even talk to him.
So you said before he's made videos, talking about flat Earth or flat earthers,
Yeah,
making
he
fun of
did.
it.
He not just like a lot, but there was one time because I thought he was going to be a flat earther, but I eventually found out he's not. And there was a video, somebody had clipped it, so he doesn't really talk about it. But there was a clip that I saw from his video from somebody else that basically he was saying, "Oh yeah, flat earth is stupid," etc. I don't remember; it was a while ago. But the point is, I take what I take what I will from anybody that I listen to and talk to and interact with, and I leave the rest. So just like you,
Okay,
I learn a
so
lot from you, TV, but I disagree at the same time with a lot of things.
Have you seen?
And
I
say again, most of the things that we're talking about, because you're being ambiguous, most of the things that you're talking about are not agree, disagree criteria. For the second time, do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, give a justification as well, please. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Chocolate.
That wasn't chocolate.
Nathan, you were trying to say something?
Well, I was trying to say, can you justify why it's not an agree-disagree situation?
Oh, I didn't know you were talking to me. Yeah, because most of a lot of things that we talk about are empirical. That is, they're either black or white, a 1 or a 0, a yes or no, right? There's no agree, disagree. That's subjective. We're into objective. So you're outside the category. Thanks.
Yeah. Just hey, the one. Good to have you.
Hello, guys.
Hello. So on a slight side note, talking of empirical data, a name from the past, Gary Awesome, has been making videos for the last, I don't know, couple of months about climate change. And I've been hinting at him, ask these people for scientific evidence. Ask them for their empirical data. And today on his most recent video, I actually got a reply out of him. He was like, I'm more interested in the socio-political aspects of climate change. And I'm like, well, why? These people are claiming science. Just ask them for their scientific evidence. And riddled throughout his video, he's got news clips of people saying, science says that blah, 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 blah. You're like, all right, well, if science says that, just ask them for their scientific evidence. And that draws a quick and swift conclusion to the pretender clowns who haven't got any.
Is that the same Gary Orson that made a video about you or us or whatever and then disappeared shortly after that?
Yeah, he made a song about me as well. No, but when it comes to things like this, the guy's making inquiries into a subject matter that he could just pummel his opponents with in a one swoop just by asking them for their scientific evidence. Now, he's appreciated that there's lots of people telling politicians what to do based on science. And they're telling their audience that, look, I don't know what climate change is, but scientists tell me that. And then they go on to parrot what a scientist has told them and the statistics that have backed up this claim. And you go, all right, well, then you're just being swindled with mathematics. Ask the scientist for his scientific evidence. And you'll quickly find they don't have any. And what is scientific evidence? Well, it's empirical data. Once you've got a hypothesis that's been validated by experimentation, you can assert a cause with empiricism. Well, what are they asserting? Cause! And what are they? Scientists! So ask them for their scientifically validated cause and effect relationship. Their scientific evidence. Believe me, it chops their head off like that. So yeah,
did you just say believe me?
Yeah, it's not an agree-disagree situation. No belief required. I might have phrased it as in, believe me, it's not an agree-disagree situation. It's an empirical situation where we talk about science. That's the whole point of it. It's empirical.
Yeah, it's just that phrase, believe me, in this context seems a little bit almost like surreal.
Yeah, I said it with a smile.
Wait, is he pro climate change or against?
Well, he said that. Well, that was his reply. He said words to the effect of, I'm not denying that climate change exists. So I said, okay, well, let's see how you get on defending that claim. Gary, do you have any scientific evidence for that which you don't discredit? So what's your reason behind your belief? In other words, what's your validity from science? If it's science that's saying this, where's their scientific evidence? But he also went on to say he's more interested in the socio-political aspects of it. It's like, all right, well, fair enough. If you're just out to make videos about what people think about this shit, then great, excellent input. Me personally, I'd prefer to focus on the fact that people are being swindled by pseudoscientists with the assertion that they're science and telling you what science says.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because I'm like, well, if you're against it, the first thing you would do is look for the scientific evidence validating it. I don't understand. But if he's just here to talk about the social aspect of it, then have fun with that.
SX0 says, could you be wrong? About what? There being no scientific evidence for climate change? Well, no, there is no scientific evidence for climate change. I am correct.
Climate change that used to be called global warming.
Oh yeah, that phrase is the one. I don't use that anymore.
Because it wasn't warming.
Look into the solar cycle. The solar, or what's it called now? I think it's called the solar cycle. We're going into the de minimis period, which is one of the cooling off periods from the sun. Goes against the idea that we're globally warming. That's probably one.
Yeah, but before global warming was a thing, they used to say the big chill is coming. New ice age is coming. Which is it?
I think it was the artist Lowry. Used to draw pictures of scenery, and they were often industrial, with chimneys in the background and whatever. But he's got pictures from depicting the Thames when the Thames froze over, and the last time the Thames froze over was some ages ago, because the Thames just doesn't freeze over. It has to be extremely cold. But it makes you wonder, what was his reason for painting the picture purely artistic, or was there a political angle to it that we just don't realize because we just think it's art? An interesting concept that he's done.
I'd like to bring something up from a conversation I had yesterday with Paul, if that's all right with you. It doesn't have to do with this topic, but I'd like to bring it up.
Go for it, man.
Y'all okay with changing topics right now?
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
All right. So I want to get this all out before people stop me, i.e. QE, but it's about creation. So I'm not calling Paul out to, I'm not calling him out because I think he's wrong. We were having a conversation about creation yesterday. Was it you, Paul?
He just dropped.
He just dropped. Darn. Okay. Well, anyways, we were talking about the creator created, being natural antecedents. And he used an example of a human being and a clock, or a human being and a computer. So a programmer being on the outside of a computer, not being held to the laws of the program. And I said, well, that's kind of a bad example because a human is created. So if you use because the only examples we have of creators are things assumed to be created. So if the ontological primitive is that things are created by a creator, then creators also have to be created in that example. So
yeah,
I think
that's why it's called an analogy. And number two, ontological primitives are at the base. That means you can't go any further. So you just contradicted yourself in the statement by misusing it.
I don't think so, because the
I just told you why.
The the analogy is the only way to. It's the only reference to what you're talking about. So, if the only reference we have
but if
to a
something is the
creator
creator,
is something
it
that
couldn't have.
wait. This is why I want
Go
to
ahead,
clear
I'm
all
sorry.
that out. So, and then we can talk about it. So, my first assertion is that a creator must be created.
Wrong.
And then,
That's
all right,
that's where you're
just
wrong.
Let me get
That's
it out
where you're
first.
wrong.
That's fine. I'm fine. I'm just taking it one step further.
Listen to all this nonsense.
Your you can't go any further because your first statement is false.
The only creators we have access to are created.
Oh my god.
Let him talk.
Okay.
Kiwi.
Now
it's a
name one
valid
thing
point.
we have created.
Talking for the past 5 minutes, he's been droning. Let him talking on. Shut your mouth.
He is just. I agree. Every
Huey, you're just as
creator,
butthurt.
everything
You're
that's
just as
created
butthurt
things
as
so
I'm not
far have been
butthurt.
forced.
You're just a moron.
You're butthurt.
Yeah. Fenris,
Yeah.
do what I
Oh,
told
you're
you
butthurt.
Guys, relax.
You
You
are,
just
dude.
have
You're triggered.
everybody was
Atheism.
doing great. Let's just
You're
take
triggered.
it slow.
I'm triggered. My favorite color is
Guys,
chartreuse.
listen.
You're angry. But you're a moron.
John, can we
For
agree
pointing
that
out that your
everything?
example is a bad example? Because what's outside?
I just told you it wasn't a bad example.
Okay.
You're using an analogy. You're
You're
taking the
saying-
analogy too far.
You're saying I'm wrong.
I'm
The
saying.
example is wrong.
Oh God.
I'm pointing out you can't use human beings as examples because
Yes,
human
we
beings are
can.
created. Human beings are created.
So what?
Name one
Concepts
name
are
one,
still
Can I
viable.
try? Can I at least
One
try?
thing.
Hello?
Hey,
Can
name
I
one
try?
thing we have created that goes on to
But
create
He won't
other
shut up.
things.
Fenris.
He'll keep droning.
Fenris, can I at least try as it was my analogy? In the example I gave where there's a computer program being created, everything within that world of that computer simply has one creator that created it. Now you're saying, in that example, yeah, but the person who's created the program within the computer was also created because it's a person. Well, yeah, I can't get away from that in my analogy, but it doesn't alter that in the analogy, we and all of our existence is comparable to the computer in that analogy. Therefore, in that program, it still only has a single creator that everything was derived from, and that won't change in that analogy. Yeah, when you step outside of that realm, which we couldn't possibly do by comparison when looking at the creator, that's an impossibility. We can't know outside of our own confines. Likewise, the Sims inside that computer program created by me, the creator of that program, still only have a creator.
In other words, he's telling you you have a straw man fallacy. Fenris. That's what he's saying.
I got him on mute, so let me know if you want me to unmute him.
No. Don't put him on mute. Leave him go. He's not. Stop putting him on mute.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, don't
Okay,
put
so-
Fenris on mute.
So having the creator, my assertion is impossible because having an absolute anything is incomprehensible because the outside, inside, those type of dualities, they only exist within our references.
Could you get to his point? To Nathan's point? You're straw manning the argument. He just explained
I'm
it
not
to you,
straw
and you
manning.
just
He was
whistled
talking-
past it.
He was talking about
I wasn't
the
done.
creator. Okay, sorry.
You are offering a straw man fallacy about the creator outside the system. It's a straw man. Nathan just explained it step by step. You just whistled past it, and you're back on your narrative.
I didn't whistle past anything. I'm addressing specifically the creator he was talking about. How can you have
Nathan, can you explain it to him again?
You kind of are whistling past it though, because yeah, in his analogy, obviously humans are created, right? He said himself he can't get away from that. But that's not saying that the creator is created, because if it's the creator, He couldn't have been created.
No, I'm not referring to the infinite regress chocolate.
no-
Let me just try once
no
more.
proof of-
Let me just try once more. So, in my analogy, we here on Earth, with all of the rules and structures that apply to us, are analogous to the Sims inside the computer in my example. Now, for us, we can't experience the outside of the computer. But when we've got the analogy of a computer, with the Sims inside it never being able to be capable of realising that I'm the one making their world, for them, there's just, once they appreciate it like we're appreciating it in this conversation, they just have the notion that they are created, and therefore there is a creator at some stage for them in their computer box. Well, we're the same by analogy. We're in a box, and we can't possibly know the equivalent of a human outside of our box that's typing in code. We will never get to that point. But it doesn't alter the fact that the analogy with a man actually creating the program for the Sims to exist in the first place with all their rules is analogous to us in our confines with our natural laws applied to us, and something beyond us that has clearly created the existence we experience within. Those two things are still a parallel, an analogy that is sound. But as soon as you remove it from my analogy and go, yeah, but inside your computer analogy, I can experience the man that's made the program, and I know he was born from a mother. Well, yeah, but in comparison, our world's equivalent to the computer world. The Sims don't know that I'm a programmer making them, and we're the equivalent to the Sims in this analogy.
Okay. I get that it works for what you're talking about. So if you're talking about the concept of the creator being on the outside, which doesn't make sense to me, if you're talking about it being on the outside of this, whatever this is, that's okay, I guess, if you use that analogy. But for me, if the only reference we have to a creator is the only reference to intelligent design we have, that we can say, here's the creator, here's the created. The creator in that reference is created. So wouldn't that be another antecedent? That a creator also has to be created in order
No,
to
that's
create?
an infinite regress fallacy. You're doing the same thing. You're not focused on the actual claim. The claim is the creator is outside that which he created. You don't understand that. So you don't understand that the programmer that programs the video game is outside that game, and the rules of the game do not apply to him. You're telling me you don't understand that?
I understand it, but we're using terms like outside.
Yeah. He's outside the game. The computer programmer of the game.
The outside creator is in an inside, a greater system.
No. In the same way, I'm not a Sim. I've made the program, but I'm not a Sim. I'm not inside the computer.
Yeah, but aren't you in a environment in a larger system?
Back to you as a Sim being able to see me, the programmer, which you can't do as a Sim. So
No, of course not.
Well, that's why
you
it's
as creator,
analogous.
But you, as the creator in the outside, are also inside something else. Do you
So
see
what?
I'm talking about?
Yeah, but so what?
So there's something greater than the creator. It has to be there. Something had to
Can't.
create
What?
you.
That's non sequitur.
It's nonsensical. I know.
Okay, I'm going to have to round out this live show. So if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley channel, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley 1980, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!